Let's jump right off to what's going on in Georgia. As you know, I had Garland Favorito on the show from gavoter.org, and he runs that little kind of nonprofit, all-volunteer kind of election integrity activist. This is the beautiful thing when you talk about direct action. It really does make a huge difference in elections, because what you have to do is you have to ask for information, you have to ask for records, the Records Act, so you can demand records, and if you can get them, then you can expose things, show things, and hopefully then bring about change. And that's what's going on in Georgia right now. A lot of cues have been taking place to what's going on in Arizona. As you know, the fam went out there, we interviewed, we talked, we saw what's going on, and that's kind of triggering a little chain reaction by people around the country. So here's a little video of what's going on. Here's how we're going to start off with how the mainstream media spins it, and then we'll go from there.
As to 145,000 absentee ballots from the November election. How exactly will that work, though, now that it's been 6 months since we voted? Channel 2 investigative reporter Justin Gray spoke exclusively to Georgia's Secretary of State about this, and Justin with us from the Fulton County's election warehouse.
Yeah, Justin, this is where those absentee ballots continue to be stored under lock and key. And this is where that Henry County judge says he's coming right here to meet with Fulton County officials, also the plaintiffs in that lawsuit, to work out the logistics about how they're going to get access to those ballots.
I'm going to grant the motion to unseal.
Henry County Superior Court Judge Brian Amero's decision to unseal 145,000 Fulton County absentee ballots comes with a major caveat. All the ballots must stay in the custody and control of Fulton County. The judge is allowing the plaintiffs in a lawsuit questioning the absentee ballots to get high-resolution scans, but not the ballots themselves.
I think that it helps restore voter confidence. At the end of the day, that's a good thing.
Georgia's Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger tells me he's repeatedly told critics to take their case to the courts. And that's what happened here.
You stood up repeatedly and said you stand behind the results here in Georgia. Why should we need this extra audit then?
Well, this is really looking at the ballots. They've made these claims, and so now they'll be able to look at it. And I think at the end of the day, they won't find anything to support their claims.
The plaintiffs testified in court that they want to look for things like strange folds, irregular paper, or marks that indicate they weren't filled out by hand. Garland Favorito is one of 9 plaintiffs.
We will know who actually won, and we'll know what to do in the future to prevent any type of fraud, if in fact it did occur.
What's really concerning to me is, when does this end?
Fulton County Commission Chairman Rob Pitts says we already know who won, and he says there has been no evidence whatsoever of any counterfeit ballots.
We've already been through 3 counts, won by hand. I mean, it's outrageous. I mean, the big lie just goes on and on and on.
And this is a civil case that in no way will affect the outcome of the election. And the judge made clear in his ruling about this that this doesn't indicate that there's any validity to these allegations of wrongdoing. He simply thinks this is a step in the process of a court case, allowing the plaintiffs to gather evidence. And again, they'll come here to the Fulton County election warehouse to work out the logistics of how all that is going to happen later this week. Reporting live in Atlanta, Justin Gray, Channel 2 Action.
Fam, does it sound familiar?
Yeah.
When's this going to end? We already had 3. Let me tell you something. I spoke to people who were very in the knee-deep waters of those recounts, giving me every bit of information, and it was a bunch of fugazi shit, very similar to Arizona's, where they did logic and accuracy tests. Then they did recounts, which means they didn't authenticate the ballots. And what happened in those recounts is that they had 4 people sign affidavits saying, listen, we just witnessed a bunch of ballots that didn't have folds in it, looked like they were marked by a computer. They still had to count them because at this point they were just recounting. It wasn't an audit.
Right.
So those affidavits have come forward. They addressed those situations with the judge, and now the judge is starting to play ball. Now, earlier, fam, they allowed them to have the ballot images, but they only did it at 200 DPI, which is dots per inch, which is a low resolution situation. So they went back to court. They wanted at least 600 DPI dots per inch, which is a higher resolution, and they wanted to look at the actual physical ballots. So last week it was a big win. This is a press release from Voter GA. Garland Favorito, who I just got off the phone with, he runs this organization, all volunteers, nonprofit, just election integrity activists, and they've been hitting the ground running. This is not like the state Senate over there in Arizona. They're not handing over the ballots to them. In other words, they can go to where the ballots are at, fam, and they can inspect them without touching them. Because for some reason they're just citing this state law and saying you can't touch the ballots. It's a bunch of crap, but they think they can work their way around it. Look at the ballots, look at the images, and authenticate it. So it says here, court rules to unseal Fulton County mail-in ballots, third victory for voter GA. This is in McDonough, Georgia. On Friday, a Henry County Superior Court granted voter GA petitioners the right to inspect Fulton County mail-in ballots that have been in question since the November 3rd, 2020 election. That includes a high resolution of 600 DPI, grayscale needed to conduct a full forensic inspection. The court upheld the petitioner's constitutional rights despite an ongoing amicus brief from Attorney General and Chris Carr and Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, which you saw, and that was the gentleman who got into it, the whole phone call with Donald Trump. Remember that thing? Seeking to stop the inspection. The brief was found to have false claims by the petitioner's response brief and the second amicus brief filed by the Tea Party Patriots Foundation and Filipino Latino Asian Movement for Empowerment. And you're going to see as we go along, when you look at the mainstream media clip that we have, fam, it's the same thing. This is a Republican group. They're no good. You know what I'm saying? They're a bunch of Trumpers and stuff. Voter GA with Garland Favorito. He supported Tulsi last time. He's a nonpartisan group. You know what I'm saying? They have some Republicans, some Democrats. So this is not about partisan politics. Authenticity of the ballots was called into question by 4 senior poll managers during a full hand count audit conducted on November 14th and 15th. This is when they were counting the ballots. They filed sworn affidavits explaining that the ballots were not creased from mailing, not marked by writing an instrument, and not printed on a normal ballot stock. Their findings were confirmed by 2 more affidavits by audit monitors who saw the ballots before Fulton County elections intervened to prevent further investigation. So they saw some stuff, they said some shit, then came the push to stop them. The decision was the 3rd victory in a row for voter GA petitioners in the case. On March 15th, petitioners were granted conditional approval to inspect the ballots pending submission of a plan and list of inspectors, which next week when I get to Georgia, I am going to talk to Garland about that plan. He says there's a lot of exciting news. They're going to go around the hurdles and they're going to get past all the bullshit. The last part of it, expert witnesses need a high-resolution scan to perform a forensic inspection. Forensic audit expert David Sawyer, who testified the other day on behalf of the petitioners Caroline Jeffords and Robert Sauter, also identified a variety of serious discrepancies affecting thousands of ballots in the Secretary of State's hand count audit that did not meet fundamental audit principles of completeness, existence, and accuracy. Petitioners must now revise their plan to show they can conduct an inspection without physically touching the ballots. The court will review the plan and meet with attorneys and experts at a warehouse containing the ballots this Friday. I asked him right off the bat, I said, you got eyes on that warehouse and shit right now? I mean, can somebody go in there and start messing with those ballots? Garland Favorito, who's running this whole operation, once again, this is individual actions, fam. This is like going around, all right, this is not the state Senate, this is not the state assembly, this is a bunch of people who are going to start filing things in court to get the information they want to have a citizen's audit. The hearing was a little bit whatever. I brought some highlights. But what are your thoughts about this right off the jump right now when you see this here and you hear this here?
I mean, it looks like the same thing as Arizona, but also I'm a little bit like, I'm just a little bit cynical right now that anything's going to come out of this because I don't think that the establishment is going to allow any proof, especially here in Georgia where there was, what's-her-face was like...
Stacey Abrams?
Was talking about how the Republicans were stealing votes and were suppressing people, which is something that they do. So I think it's going to be harder in this case to convince people of that because of all the work, all the supposed work that other election people have done exposing how the Republicans have stolen or suppressed the vote before. Yeah. I think they're going to run into that even worse than in Arizona. And that's what worries me as far as like the way they're portraying it. I just have very little faith that anything's going to come out of this. I mean, I think it's good that people are doing this, but I also think it's like, damn, like I just have a hard time believing that we're going to get anything other than just more distrust in the system, which is fine. But
Well, that's the whole thing. I mean, Georgia has their law though that they just put into they just signed. You know what I'm saying? And like once again, Kemp was forced. Like he had his back against the wall. There were a bunch of angry patriots, Trump people, whatever you want to call them, that were really really pissed off, and he had no choice. But he has some competition out there coming up for governor next time, and I'm not talking about from the left. I'm talking about from his right. I don't know if you would establishment Republican going against a Trumper. Would that be competition from his right? Where would that be in your mind?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, it's hard to say.
That's where the competition is going to come from this time too, as well. So it's not just right versus left. It's going to be an all-out war with the Georgia election in 2022. So here's some of the highlights from the hearings. And once again, fam, you're going to see it's more of the same shit. The first time, Secretary of State Counsel tries to muddy the waters. Watch how she tries to get, because she knows the public's going to get a hold of this. They're going to make clips. So watch what she says when she's questioning one of the experts in the audit process.
Use the term counted twice. Were you shown any, or were you present at the deposition of Investigator Callahan?
No, ma'am, I was not.
Were you shown a transcript of that deposition?
No.
Okay. Are you aware of a difference between the machines scanning ballots as opposed to tabulating ballots?
I understand that there's a difference. It's also my understanding that the number of votes reflected on the Secretary of State's risk limiting audit represent the number of votes that were cast, the final tally of the votes that were cast in the November election. That's my understanding.
So when you say ballots were counted twice, are you saying they were scanned twice, or are you saying they were tabulated twice?
They appear twice in the data provided by the Secretary of State's risk limiting audit and are included in the total count.
Let's cut it short.
Johnny,
when it's scanned, is it counted? What does that mean? I mean, they're trying to conflate things, but when it's scanned, what does that mean?
When it's scanned, it means a ballot image is taken.
And then what?
And then it's stored somewhere.
Okay. So when it's scanned and it takes a ballot image right away, does it mean it's already manufacturing a count or creating a count or?
Technically, the record is known to the computer, and I guess a human can go and see that.
Yes.
It's not until they, I don't know how it works in their system because every state has a different system. But basically, if you scan them and then if the tabulation is separate, then supposedly no one sees them before you tabulate them. So
yeah. I think that's been an ongoing
tabulator.
Yeah. It's an ongoing battle right now, and people are we're trying to, and that's something I think what the Convo Couch has done great, and Johnny, when it's working with Raji Rob, is that when it scans it, it takes a picture. That picture is what's counted. That's why the images are so important. So there's a stored count no matter what once it takes a picture that a human can access. What these bodies, I would say, or these election officials in different areas, whether it be California, Arizona, or Georgia, are saying, we're not accessing a count until Election Day when we press that button. But they're still trying to conflate the kind of issue about, well, it was just scanned, it wasn't counted. And you're misunderstanding things, sir, when you're saying it was counted twice. No, it was scanned and then counted. And that's what they're trying to conflate right over there. They're really trying to conflate that to the public like these people don't know what they're doing.
Right.
But here is the paper authenticator, which is, I didn't get her exact name because nobody can say her name right. But she testified, fam, that she worked for DARPA.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, literally testified. This woman is one of the most qualified person on the planet. So here's what she's talking about, what exactly she's looking for. And I think people should start paying attention to this stuff of what they're looking for in an audit.
All right. Doctor, why do you need, continue with your explanations, why you need access to the originals?
Okay. The originals or the scan data that has been given to me to look at the same images that David Sawyer looked at are 200 DPI, but they're compressed, which means they're even a lower resolution. My analytical equipment must have 600 DPI to begin. I'd actually like to have them a lot higher, but that would be time limiting. I understand that. Because what I'm going to try to do is look at every oval and the fill-in of the oval to see and his dots per square inch, how consistent the filling is across the entire oval, the concentricity or the circularity of the oval, and dimensions of the oval, because there could be different dimensions to different paper stock, if that was indeed the case. So I want to look at the ovals and how they were filled in. This is all black and white scan using image analysis, but I must have a very high resolution image because I have to merge it with my equipment.
What's that? All right. Pretty much she was just talking about the way that she's going to inspect the ballots. She's going to look at the ballots the way the circle is marked. Once again, they want to look at the fibers of the paper. They want to look at all that stuff. But she needs better resolutions from the images they handed over. And it's just there's no wonder why they gave them 200 DPI instead of 600 DPI. They know that in 200 DPI, they couldn't find the things that they're looking for. The creases, all that other stuff. With 600, they can look at everything on that ballot. She says that's the bottom line it could be. But 600 DPI, and the judge granted them that.
And you said she worked for DARPA?
She worked for DARPA. She worked for the EPA. She has a huge resume.
But that could go either way. That could be somebody that worked for DARPA and is like not going to be honest, or it could be somebody that worked for DARPA and because they know what DARPA does, they could be.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think there's a lot of people who did work for DARPA, did work for the FBI, work for the CIA, the John Kiriakou, all those guys who were like, they're not all about the actual plan. They thought when they signed up they were doing something for their country, realized what's going on and like, yo, I'm out of here. So what she talked about, everything she's looking for. So yeah, once again, it could be the whole two-step, or it could be somebody who really has a lot of knowledge that can really bring a light to the information.
So
now,
Costa, I'm really confused about what we're even seeing here. So this is like a court hearing.
Yep.
And who is she? So like, what is she?
She's the witness. She's one of the auditors.
She's one of the auditors.
She's one of the auditors. She's the one who's going to be the ballot authenticator. And she wanted the DPI.
Right. Yeah. She wanted all the details. And
yes.
When was this? So
this was last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why was this happening? Because of the civil civil case.
The civil case kept on going. When Garland was on the show, he had talked about it. They had went to court. They'd fought their case. They'd showed their affidavits of the people who said that they were senior counters, worked for elections, and they said there was something wrong with these ballots, that they saw a bunch of ballots that weren't folded, that looked like they had a computer mark. So that pretty much gave them access to keep going on with the case to ask for the images. They got the images. They were at 200 DPI, not enough. They went back to court and said, we want 600 DPI, and we also want to look at the physical ballots. And the judge said yes, as long as they don't touch them.
And then who's these ladies up here? All these?
Those are the counselor for the Secretary of State and the other office, I can't remember, for the amicus brief. And then also the Secretary of State had his assistant there, and she made a statement, which we're just going to skip because the sound's not good. But those are the lawyers. Those are like the lawyers that they hired outside counsel to.
Well, that could be the county counsel or whatever.
The county counsel and whatnot.
Maybe
and
it's
stuff.
Public counsel, not private. We don't know. Do you know?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying it's similar to the counsel that was hired outside here in California that were on the screen. So, yes, that's who they are. Let's skip the next one. The next one was the Secretary of State. Pretty much just did the same thing. Saying the Secretary of State stays by the results. There's no reason for this. Blah, 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 blah. What are they hiding? What don't they want you to see? So that's been kind of sending Georgia in a whirlwind. Now, Vernon Jones is a very big polarizing character out there, right? He's a Trump supporter. He's made some very controversial statements, but he's running for governor. Here's his first statement right here that I put up. He got into it with Keith Olbermann last week. So he got thrown out with Mike Lindell. He went to this governor's kind of meeting, and he was thrown out of the room. And then Keith Olbermann went at him. He was escorted out because it was a meeting of governors, and he's not a governor. Also, FYI, you're not a governor. However, when the National Republican Morons Convention opens, you and Pillow Boy are in. And Vernon Jones went back at him. Keith, with all due respect, of which not much is due, it's no surprise that a limousine liberal such as yourself would leap to the defense of someone like Brian Kemp. In fact, it's very, very telling.
Wow.
So that was that. Fam, you're going to get crazy at some of these statements, though. He gets really, really bad. Vernon Jones. Vernon Jones denounces critical race theory. It's racism. Should not be taught. Had an online Twitter war. And this guy goes back and forth. He'll fight with you on Twitter. He doesn't care. He feels a certain way, he'll say it. But this is the one that got a lot of controversy last week. I wish people would recognize the death of Jesus Christ as much as they do George Floyd.
Oh, my God.
That's all I have to say.
Oh, my God.
You can see the 27,000
So what
likes.
does this guy have to do?
He is running for governor. He's an ex-state representative. He's very, very popular in the state. And the other day, he just called for an all-out forensic audit. He's been talking to Gavin and that whole situation, you know what I'm saying? Not with Gavin personally, Garland personally, excuse me, not Gavin. But he's been paying very close attention to what's going on with this case. So he pretty much just said that he wants to launch a full forensic Georgia audit the way Arizona's doing it.
Now, don't you think that actually hurts the audit? Because it's somebody like that is so controversial, that is so, has these opinions that are perceived as negative by the vast majority of people, not just liberals, but like a lot of people. Don't you think that hurts the credibility? It does for me.
Yeah,
it does for me.
It might for you. It does for me. But like in Georgia, I don't know how that plays.
True.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I want to go meet the guy. I want to go speak to him. I want to see if he knows what elections are all about. You know what I'm saying?
Why would he know?
Because he's running for governor. He's been pushing for audits, whatnot. And, when somebody's pushing for audits, I want to know if they know, what do they know about elections? I want to know, like, when I got off the phone with Garland, I said, Garland, you had ES&S out there before Dominion. He was like, oh, yes, and oh, boy. So for people like Garland, it's not just Dominion. It's about proprietary software. Mm-hmm. They know the whole system. I want to know if this guy knows that stuff. I want to know what he knows about elections, or if he's just parroting a bunch of bullshit from the Gateway Pundit.
That's what it seems like to me. But
so he just really had a really quick clip of him. You don't have to show that one, Johnny. We'll go to the next one because he just talks that he wants to get a full audit. And you can see Arizona Audit has started back up this morning, and things are running smoothly with 28 tables working. They did lose a contractor. One of the contractors did not renew. He was only signed through the 14th. Tech companies running out of Arizona ballot recount backs out. They were done. We just got off the phone with John Brakey. The gentleman, this is the hand counting part. He was part of the hand counting team. Mm-hmm. So they didn't renew his contract. They had somebody in his place to take his place, and they're just going to run without it. You know what I'm saying? They feel very confident that the people that they have placed now can do it just as well, if not better. There was also some health issues there. So I think the mainstream media is trying to stir it a different way.
Of course, they're trying to say this thing is falling apart. The guy left, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, okay, his contract was up. He didn't renew. He wasn't feeling well. That's it. That's it. There's no story there. Yeah. But leave it to the mainstream media to make it out like it's this whole debacle. So
last clip before we bring on our guest. This is the mainstream media once again shitting their pants, hearing that there's going to be another audit, possibly.
Now, the audit of Maricopa County's 2020 ballots has been on pause this week to make way for high school graduation ceremonies. Seriously. The Republican president of the Arizona Senate says the recount will continue once the graduates have vacated the building, but it's no longer just Arizona. A judge in Fulton County, Georgia, just granted a motion allowing absentee ballots from 2020 to be unsealed and examined for fraud. A conservative group created and funded by former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler spoke out in support of the decision, quote, "We must inspect Fulton County's absentee ballots to reassure Georgians that their voices are heard and their votes are counted." Of course, as you recall, the votes in the 2020 presidential election were already recounted twice in Georgia statewide, and we know that there was no fraud. Jenna Griswold is the Secretary of State of Colorado and the chair of the Democratic Association of Secretaries of State, and she joins me now. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Good evening, Zerlina. Thank you for having me.
So what is the danger of the precedent Republicans are setting here? Is it that election results can't be trusted anymore?
No, it's that Republicans are trying to stack the deck against American voters to take power. That's what's happening. In Arizona, in places where these conversations are happening about sham audits, in the 47 states where we've had over 400 bills to suppress voters, the key behind all of this is a coordinated attack on our democracy. It's spreading lies to then be able to suppress voters for conservative Republicans to tilt election in their favor. This cannot be the new normal. It's un-American, it's undemocratic, and it's just wrong.
One of your fellow secretaries of state, Katie Hobbs of Arizona, wrote this letter to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors saying they should no longer use the voting machines turned over in the audit. Why is that a concern here, and what are the security risks associated with the machine being in the hands of the cyber ninjas?
Well, first and foremost, the entity that I wouldn't even call it conducting an audit, conducting a sham audit, conducting shenanigans out in Arizona, is a partisan group that doesn't have any experience in elections. And when we do election audits, there's a whole host of best practices, including chain of custody, among other things. And once that chain of custody is broken and other security procedures are not followed, then it puts the voting equipment at risk. And this could cost Arizona millions of dollars to replace this election equipment.
You go there.
But I think the bigger picture
you
is...
can see it's more of the same, right?
Yeah.
Same bullshit.
Yeah.
This is the Secretary of State of Colorado. It's a sham audit, not really telling you why. The cost, now we can't use the machines. That's what they're going to say. Oh, these people cost millions of dollars because they want to look at these machines, and now there's no integrity. And since when, fam, do Democrats care about the chain of custody when it comes to elections? They want drop boxes and ballot harvesting. I mean, you tell me.
No, I mean, it's the same shit. Like, it's the same thing. So,
it is terrible.
Yeah.
So that's that. We're going to get to Georgia. We're going to get to the bottom, and I'm going to go out there and see what's going on. I'm going to speak to a lot of people, speak to the two witnesses, the two new affidavits, and get their experiences of what they saw in those ballots to sign a sworn affidavit saying, yo, we can't do this. This is awful.